Hello, book friends. Terry from Terry Talks Books, or Ms. Terry B, here on YouTube. Today I'm doing It's a Wrap for Shorty September. A lot of us spent the month of September reading short books. Under 200 pages is the, I think, official designation. You can bend those rules. I think we all kind of make some of these reading events our own. So I had a stack of hopeful reads, and if you go back a few videos, you will see my TBR, to be read, for that. And of course, TBR in my case almost always means I hope to. So what I'm going to start out with, off of that stack, what didn't I read? I'm just going to show you the stack, and you can pause if you want to actually see what they are. Or you can go back to my other video and check into that. Quite a few. Quite a few unread. But you know what? I'm not mad about that. There are a few reasons why I didn't read more than the 4.5 books that I did read, which I will talk about shortly. One of those reasons for not reading quite as many as I thought I might was because I in the middle of all of this, I did a buddy read with Britta Bowler. We read The Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich, and some of you might remember that a few years back, she and I started doing a buddy read. We were going to go all the way through Louise Erdrich's books, and we finished that. And then we've kind of continued this as Erdrich has published new ones. And so this one came out last year, and we decided to buddy read that this last month. And so I will talk about that separately, but this buddy read is part of why I didn't read quite as much. So what did I read? Well, first I'll show you the stack, and then I will talk about them. I'm going to do just some brief mini reviews on these. So the first one, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This was published in 1995 and is translated from the French. This I had, and is 188 pages. And you know, I had a hard time remembering that this was as recent as it is, 1995, because it must, for some reason I kept thinking it was, you know, from mid-century, mid-20th century. So perhaps it seemed like there was something about it that read as an older work to me, and I'm not sure what that is. I didn't really identify that, so I had to keep reminding myself. And this one is a dystopian, maybe post-apocalyptic. We really don't know, and that remains vague throughout the book. Throughout the 188 pages, it just stays that way. The book is more or less without hope, but it is redeemed by a sense of human curiosity, especially on the part of our nameless narrator, who is the youngest and was actually a toddler when this group of 39 women something happened, and they ended up in a cage underground, kind of an open caged area. The lights are always on, so there's no way to tell time. There's just no way to tell anything. There's no windows, they can't see a sunrise or a sunset. They don't have clocks. And they are being guarded by these very silent men who have shifts. And they come and go through a door that's kept shut. And so that remains mysterious as well. And just as far as the plot goes, an alarm goes off, and all of these guards take off, and the women are going, what? They're able to actually, this particular group of women is actually able to escape and come above ground. So there is a real sense of human curiosity, not necessarily hope. what would they be, what would they hope for, really, as they're up above ground? That becomes apparent pretty quickly. But there is a real sense of curiosity. And the theme of this, is it's really questions and musings on what it means to be human. A couple of particulars on this book I found very interesting. There are no chapter breaks. It's one long story. I hate that. I really do. I hate that. But I think it's quite possible, highly likely, I think, that was intentional, because the author has done several things to pull us, the reader, in and give us a sense of this. What time is it? What day is it? Where am I? And to have no breaks and to just run it all together like that really kind of leaves you feeling as maybe some of these women prisoners felt about that. The narrator is nameless. She doesn't have a name. She came as a toddler. Nobody, no name. We remain in the dark, like the prisoners, the entire book. So I know that sounds really, really depressing, and it's not exactly a cheerful story, but there are just, this redeeming element of the curiosity and living your life and pursuing, continuing, is still, in the face of hopelessness, there is a sense of hope there. And it does make one think about, what exactly is it that makes us human? So I left you a lot in the dark there because I don't want to give it away. I finished this book and I just kind of sat there and I just had no words. And I'm still struggling to find the words. And I really did like this book. I really did. So there is that. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Then I read a book that I've had for a very long time, and I talked about in my other video. There's a little story that goes with that. But I have had, not this very copy, but I have had this on my shelf for a very long time, unread. So, The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. And this one was published in 1984. My copy now has something additional. Was it something additional from the author, which is kind of nice to have. Yeah, the introduction maybe. Is it dated? I got a sense that it was dated. Yeah, 2008. So I actually kind of, because of the story that was being told, maybe it's a bit of autofiction here, the story that's being told, it kind of, by having that introduction from the author, now that I, because I waited so long, I think it helped the whole thing be more beautiful and more fully developed, I guess, in a way. I love the introduction. Let's just say that. So 110 pages, so it is a shorty, and it is the story of Esperanza Cordero. It's told in vignettes. So let me see here. Very, very short chapters. Some of them literally that long. So I read this very quickly. One sitting, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours. I don't know. I wasn't particularly rushing this one, but let's see, it's a coming of age story, and themes on this: the power of words and the role of society versus a person's pursuit of goals. Okay, so there's that kind of conflict going on there, and that was it was portrayed in a way just very, very interesting to think about. And of course, the power of words. And she was a writer. She wanted to become a writer. So it's, about writing. It's about words and the power they have. Symbolism. The house equals ideas such as independence and pride and a stable life and dreams. So, just think about it being a coming of age story, and then all of the you know, the symbolic nature of the house representing those things, and it might give you a little bit of a picture of what's going on here. I quite enjoyed this. I think it's one of those where when I put it down, I kind of went, okay, not bad. But the longer I've been away from it, the more I do find myself coming back and thinking about it. So that says a lot. So that was The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I think a lot of people have read that for school, high school, college, maybe. The next one I read, Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress by, okay, I got my pronunciation written down here, Dai Sijia. I'm going to show you. See the author's name there? Dai Sijia. Suja, I've heard Suja as well. He's Chinese, and it is translated from the French. Was moved to, probably, I can't remember at what point in his life, to France. So, but Chinese. So there you go. And that's my understanding from when I looked it up, is how you say that name. My other video, I did not know how to say it, so I didn't. So I thought I better look that up. So this one here is published 2001, and it is 184 pages. This is, did I say translated from the French? He wrote it in French, and then it was translated from that, in case I didn't say that. This is set in 1971 in Mao's Cultural Revolution in China. So I've come across, to me growing up, that's just Mao Zedong was, and I probably kind of mildly butchered that name. It was a name that everyone knew, even if you were little, even if you were young. And this idea that there was a cultural revolution going on, and roughly speaking, what that meant. I found out that there are a lot of people not that much younger than me, no idea. They really, so many of them really don't know. So this is set during that time period, and in 1971 we have two boys who, because of that cultural revolution and what was happening, to, I guess, are they young teenagers, mid-teens maybe? I'm calling them boys. They were sent to the mountains of rural China to be re-educated. So that happened a lot in China during that time. Books not allowed, I think. What was it? Mao's Little Red Book or something? It was like, is that the only book anyone was allowed to have and refer to? But books, literature, no. Okay, and intellectuals were looked down on very much. And many people were sent off to be re-educated. Okay, yeah, that's the scene here that we've got. So in the mountains here, there are other kids also there to be re-educated. And one of these kids is a boy. He has a suitcase full of forbidden books. I know, he has a suitcase full of them. And our two boys, they get to those books. They kind of go about things, you know, and it you have to be rather sneaky to try to get to these books. They want to read them. And so, you know, that's a bit of the story. And then also in this story is one of the villagers' daughters is the little seamstress. And so these boys have, they come and visit her, and they do finally get their hands on these books, these forbidden books, and read them, and they read them out loud to the little seamstress. And the story is really about how these books changed their lives and the lives of the little seamstress. And the whole irony of this is that they were sent to the mountains to be re-educated, to wipe out that intellectual, you know, streak, you know, and put them someplace where they didn't have any access to literature, so they couldn't develop their own thinking or anything like that, and be, you know, exposed to ideas and such. And so the irony of it is that there's a whole suitcase of them, and they're sneaking around and reading them and sharing that with the little seamstress who is also a teen girl. So really, we have the meaning of books and literature in our lives, and honestly, this the writing was incredibly beautiful. It was another one of those quiet books. So far, all of these books are very quiet, even though their themes might be big and heavy, and there might be, for instance, the distress brought on by the first one that I talked about, a dystopian. They're still quiet. All of them are quiet. And this one here, I just loved the writing. I just thought it was so beautiful. And so this one I finally got read. My husband got it for me did I write it in the front? I don't think I did. No, it's a very, very long time ago. just read it. I am so glad. I am so glad I read this. Enjoyed that. And then the last one that I actually completed is All Passion Spent by Vita Sackville-West. So most of you probably know who she is. This is published in 1931. It's quite short, 169 pages. So this one actually probably took me, it took me the longest to read. And I have, some of them are a little bit longer, but I didn't want to rush this one. I was really, truly enjoying it. So this one here is about an elderly upper-class woman's examination of her life, and her very, very late in life, after her husband dies, emancipation from the expectations of others. In this book, namely her children, but her entire life, upper class British expectations, they're just there. And so she spent her entire life tending to those expectations. And then she got to this point, and she's something like 88 or something like that. I don't remember for sure, but quite elderly at the end of her life. And she's kind of, well, I'm going to do what I want to, in spite of her adult children with their plans for mom here. This is considered feminist literature, but I thought it really transcends that. I don't mean that in a negative way, but I thought it was a very good story as well. It told a very good story. I enjoyed the telling of it. I enjoyed the setting and the descriptions. I enjoyed the humor that was involved here, but this is considered feminist literature. Full of observation, full of humor, a lot of observation. And sometimes our main character here, Lady Slane, she just, somebody can be talking to her and she's just wandering off into some memory or thinking. And some of those are very lovely, and I'm going to read you one of those in just a moment. She's just sitting there remembering something from the long ago. There's quite a few cozy elements, a great description of Hampstead House and the garden, and then the daily rituals of Lady Slane. So again, pretty quiet. I thought it was pretty quiet. But let me pull out this quote, this piece of the, whoops. Let's see, where did I put it? Okay. So she's thinking back to a moment in time long ago with her husband, and just there's a lot of passion behind it, I thought. And I think we're hearing the author, we're seeing something about the author as well. Very much seeing the artist's eye here. So she, Lady Slane, she remembered how crossing the Persian desert with Henry, her husband, her deceased husband, their cart had been escorted by flocks of butterflies, white and yellow, which danced on either side and overhead and all around them. now flying ahead in a concerted movement, now returning to accompany them. Amused, as it were, to restrain their swift frivolity to a flitting around this lumbering conveyance, but still unable to suit their pace to such sobriety. So, to relieve their impatience, soaring up into the air or dipping between the very axles, coming out on the other side before the horses had had time to put down another hoof, making all the while little smuts of shadow on the sand like little black anchors dropped, tethering them by invisible cables to earth, but dragged about with the same capricious swiftness, obliged to follow. And she remembered thinking, lulled by the monotonous progression that trailed after the sun from dawn to dusk, like a plow that should pursue the sun in one straight slow furrow round and round the world, she remembered thinking that this was something like her own life, following Henry Holland like the sun, but every now and then moving into a cloud of butterflies, which were her own irreverent, irrelevant thoughts darting and dancing. I thought that was very beautiful. And the image of these dancing butterflies and crossing the Persian desert. Butterflies out in the Persian desert? I don't know. Did she take some liberties here? But I just thought that was very, very beautiful. So I wanted to actually read that little bit to you to give you a little taste of it. That was, she doesn't always use the very long run-on sentence. You know, doing a Henry James, as I refer to it, not my favorite thing, but I thought she did it pretty well. There is, you know, some punctuation in there that helps with the rather poetic flow. So I really, really enjoyed that. I have one more Vita Sackville West to read, and I'm just really looking forward to it because I enjoyed her writing so very, very much. And then the book that I am halfway through, and I am very pleased with myself that I did pick it up. I did start reading this, and I will finish it. I've just taken it very slowly. It's an intentional decision, really. I did hope that I would finish it before the end of the month, but I didn't want to rush it. And what is that? These are essays in favor of the sensitive man and other essays by Anais Nin. Okay, let's see. Did I make some notes at all? No. These essays were published, I think at least one of them I saw 60s, but let's just say early 70s. Okay, these were speeches given, essays published somewhere between 1966 and 1976. And there are maybe 20-ish, over 20. And they are broken up into sections: women and men, writing, music and films, and enchanted places. I have been quite enjoying this, and if you remember, this is something that I've had since like 1990. It was a Christmas gift to me from a fellow literature major. We had sat through many classes together, and in you know, groups out on the university lawn discussing the things, right, as one does. So so this was a gift from her, and it's one of those, this truly is from my shelf of shame. And so I am very glad to be about halfway through with this, I am enjoying it. I have not necessarily gotten along with, well, is it just one? One of her pieces of fiction? Yeah, I'm not going to talk about that here, but I DNF'd it. But I could, you know, I have read out of her diaries, and so I knew what she was capable of, and so I thought, well, maybe with her, I should be reading her nonfiction. So, and I don't know if I'll ever go back and try any more of her fiction or not. So she's a very interesting person. She is someone who I don't necessarily agree with, but that doesn't bother me one bit. And as usual, there are all sorts of things in there that I resonate with. So on one level or another, and it's still, she's a very good writer. She puts out really great ideas. She's just a different person than me, and clearly from a different time. She was born in, I can't remember, very early 1900s, I think, like 1909 or something. I'm not remembering right off the top of my head. But this here is really, these essays are presenting her perspective, her worldview. And I guess that's where she and I differ. It's like she has a different worldview than I do. But I still, I still like to and can talk to people who have a fairly different worldview. I've not always experienced that same courtesy, let's just say, but there are those out there who can just sit and have a kind of a salon type conversation about things, and we, there's no one's there to judge. It's we're talking. She tells us about feminine eroticism, which is, that's kind of where I got let down with one of her collections of fiction. Which feminine eroticism, and I was so hopeful because in that book she had an essay, an introduction to that, where she talked about what it was she wanted to do. Erotic literature is for a female is, generally speaking, quite different than what it would be for a male. And then she, in my opinion, what I did read, she proceeded to like cater to that male version. So let's see here. I will leave that part there. But she also talks about why she writes, and I find her things, other than talking about eroticism, much more interesting. And so she really does tell us why she writes, and then she discusses her contributions to women's lib. So she would be a more early feminist. So I don't know what she'd be considered. Second wave? I don't know. I seem to understand that a little bit better. I understand first wave, second wave, and I don't even know what we're up to. Fourth wave, fifth wave, I don't know. And the further along we come with that, I understand this better. Let's just put it that way. And so her literature is a contribution to feminist literature as well. So it's kind of a theme with some of these, one, two, three of those books, and then this one, which is kind of interesting. What else did I want to point out here? Yeah, it does seem, when she's talking about women, because she is an earlier wave of feminism, it does seem dated and in some ways somewhat naive, I guess. But I still think, and I know I'm not the only one, when I've kind of checked around, I'm not the only one, it still has immense relevance, I find. So, let's see, anything else I wanted to say? Yeah, I think that was where I'm going to leave this. When I finish it, this is one that I'm likely to come back and do a separate discussion or review of this and get into some of this in a little bit more detail. But I really am enjoying this, very much, and I'm happy to say that, because I was a little discouraged after reading the one I started earlier this year, and DNF just said I'm not reading that. So anyway, so those are my reads for Shorty September. I'm curious, did you read for Shorty September? Did you? And tell me about it down in the comments below if you did, or tell me if you didn't. That's fine. Maybe why? I don't know, whatever you want to talk about there, but did you participate? What did you read? Have you read any of these? You know, what did you think about any of these here that I actually discussed? I'm kind of curious if anyone, I know a lot of people have been reading this one here, I Who Have Never Known Men, so I expect maybe somebody will talk to me about that one, which is great. And then I am particularly curious about the Vita Sackville West. Any of you people, any of you people, any of you readers out there, you know, is she a favorite author of anyone? What have you read of hers? What did you think? Did you read this one? What did you think about that? And of course, I will open the door more fully on this one when I review it at a later date. But if you want to talk about it, go ahead. I've read enough read enough in this book to have some conversation, and I don't think anybody's going to spoil anything on that one. So these books, a few of them, I think I might, the last one, and then the Vita Sackville West, maybe Balzac and the Little Chinese Seamstress, and then I Who Have Never Known Men. You may see sometime in the future full reviews on these, and I will try my hardest, because I usually do those reviews first, then do a wrap up so that I can include links. So I will try my hardest to remember to put those links in the description box below as I do them. And maybe if I can, put cards up above in this video where I'm talking about them. So anyway, I hope you all have had a good September and that you're having a good October. Are you, what reading are you doing? Let's talk. Let's talk below in the comments. See you later, book friends. Bye-bye.